Joe Biden walks back his comments on whether or not everybody who disagrees with him is a domestic terrorist, but then he kind of walks him back forward again. So we'll talk about that, some of the fallout from the speech, and where it goes from there. In other news, Gina McCarthy is leaving, and John Podesta is in as the climate change spending allocator. So we'll be talking about that, what that means, and don't worry, stop noticing. It's only a coincidence that all the companies that are getting these juicy, lucrative, no-bid government contracts have ties to the Clintons. But we'll talk about that. Let's see, what else is there? John Harwood leaving CNN leads people to tell us to boycott CNN. Well, I'm telling you right now, I'm actually going to continue to use them, because whether I can use them to laugh at the foibles of the left, or whether I can use them to actually report some objective news, it is what it is, and we'll figure it out as we go. But it's just a little bit funny to watch everybody go, stop watching CNN! They're not propagandist enough. But we'll talk a bit about that, and where we go from there, and what happens with that. And a massive stabbing spree runs across Canada as a manhunt is still underway. We'll talk about that, what that means, and where we go from there. It is going to be all this and more. Welcome back to the Backup Channel, and happy Labor Day. I am Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to Contemporary. My name is Jay Edgar. We have got a ton of stuff to go over here today. I mean, it's Labor Day, and I'm going to be working quite hard today because there's a lot there. I mean, we don't have to do a lot with finance today because the markets are all going to be closed, but there is definitely a lot to go over here. Some of it is left over from the previous Contemporary because, of course, as you all remember, we ran out of time. So I'm hoping we can get through some of that here in the next couple hours. But yeah, there's a lot. And a lot of it still has to do with that stupid speech. We'll be watching some video of people doing the walkback. The walkback is my favorite part. Because I think before he was off the stage, most people knew that that was a tremendously stupid optics fail for the people who were involved. I think before he even climbed down and before he was done talking, a lot of the people looked at this and said, are we having problems? I know that we talked about CNN subtly lightening everything so that the stripes on the flag were magenta and it was a nice happy pink, not a dark blood red. So we'll go over some of that. We'll talk about some of what this means and what we should really be paying attention to. Plus, right off the top, as soon as we get done with finance, we've got... we've got a little bit of irony, but we've also got Trump back in the headlines and DeSantis giving a strategy for Republicans to win the House. And then right after that, we've got one of me with a strategy. So let's get down into it. Let's get started. Before we do, make sure you guys go check out great programming such as the Daily Ignoramus, the Breakdown with Birkenhoff, the R-Rated Conservative, the Porch Boys. Go check out Mr. Behavior, PJ Patriot, who will, by the way, be coming up with a new co-host here. And the next little bit, I've talked to her briefly. we have the same pronouns, so we're in solidarity in things. But go check that out, the No Gimmicks podcast. Go check out all these great programs and great programming, because it's a group of people who's dedicated to bringing you the news by the common man for the common man. So go and check all those out, and let's get into it. To start, looking in at Friday's Dow, which we'll be looking at this again tomorrow as well, but the Dow dropped a full percentage point. It actually dropped probably almost 2, looking at where it jumped up to and throughout the intraday trading here. So it went up to 32,007 from its previous close of 31,650,642, which means that, yeah, it came up a little bit over 1%. And then it gave it all up and then more as it dumped itself down to 31,183.94 to claw its way back to 31,318.44, losing 1.07%. And it's interesting to watch. And it looks like the futures right now are up. But we've seen where that goes before, where the futures come back up, and then it's like, oh, well, sorry, we still can't hold this sustainably, so we'll continue to watch this. Do remember that all the markets are closed today for the Labor Day holiday, so there's not going to be any more trading. This exact same chart will be in front of us tomorrow. And looking into the Bitcoin, which is not closed because that trades globally at all hours of the day and night, and the Bitcoin has brought itself down to 19,770. A fairly steady drop-off throughout the day, starting the day at 20,000, almost even 20,040 cents, immediately jumping up and then jumping back down to tumble its way down under 19. Looking out at the 5-day to see what happened over the weekend, it does look like over the weekend, yesterday, it brought itself down to 19,633.50. But going all the way back out to the second, where we last looked at it, it held itself steady and then it just fell like a stone, holding itself in the sub $20,000 range. So there's some things to worry about, some things to concern yourself with. Some of the sell-off to be for the last official day of summer, some of the last vacation that's going on with that. Is some of the sell-off due to what could possibly be happening and what's happening in the grocery stores, what's happening at the gas pump? We'll continue to watch this and see where this goes. And again, I know not a lot of people here enjoy the idea of people trading in Bitcoin, because if you can't hold it, mold it, you should have already sold it. But it is a good indicator as to where the economy is going to go in the immediate short term, as it is one of the most easily liquefiable assets. So that's why we continue to watch it and see what happens with it. Looking in at the gas prices, from Gas Buddy, the Madison area gas prices, Lodi is still at $3.16 and $3.18. Coming into Madison, there was one station that dropped itself all the way to $3.27. Otherwise, $3.29 is the standard across the board in Madison. I would be interested, after a weekend of heavy gas usage, if some of this jumps and spikes and we see a probably, on first estimate, maybe $3.40 in the Madison area. Not a huge jump, but probably around the 10-11 cent range. Because I do think that a lot of stations followed on the Circle K path, and just instead of going through and hoping that people will come through and go out and travel, they decided to drop gas prices. Maybe not 40 cents like Circle K did, but drop gas prices in the hopes that people will throw caution to the wind and come in, and the gas stations will make up the difference that they lost in gasoline and food, beverages, bathroom stops, etc. So hopefully they'll be going through and doing that, but unfortunately that may mean higher prices for the rest of us. We'll continue to watch this and see what happens with that. Let's see what IBD has to say for the morning. Dow futures rise, energy prices jump on this news after market sell-off intensifies. From Ed Carson. Dow futures were a little changed early Monday, along with the S&P and the NASDAQ, with energy prices rebounding as OPEC meets Russia. And says natural gas flows will remain shut. The stock market rally fell sharply last week, breaking through key levels. With major indices heading south and a few stocks looking healthy, investors should have a large cash position and wait for better conditions. Apple will be in focus this week with the Dow tech giant set to unveil the iPhone 14 on September 7th. Apple stock has been setting up until plunging over the last several sessions along with the broader market. Arista Networks has a similar chart pattern to Apple's, but Arista Networks has some differences that may make it more attractive. ANET stock is certainly actionable, however. Meanwhile, Enphase Energy, Lantheus, and Neurocrine Biosciences are drifting lower in consolidations following strong breakouts. Are they setting up or ready to crack? Lantheus is on the IBD leaderboard. Enphase and Arista Networks are on the IBD Big Cap 20. On the futures, Dow futures rose 0.1% versus fair value, the S&P dipped 0.1%, and the Nasdaq fell 0.35%. Markets will be closed on Monday for the Labor Day holiday, but other exchanges around the world are open. Dow futures will trade normally, closing at 1 p.m. Eastern Time and reopening at 6 p.m. Eastern Time. China is extending a COVID lockdown in Chengdu, the capital of the industrial Sichuan province, and home to 21 million people. Coastal tech hub Shenzhen, which underwent mass testing this weekend, now faces tiered restrictions. And remember, overnight and over the holiday trading in Dow futures and elsewhere doesn't necessarily translate into actual trading in the next regular stock market session. So that's what we have for that. Let's grab, I got a couple more finance ones here, just looking on various different sectors. I'm sorry, not various different sectors, it's just housing market. So I've got this one from The Blaze that I think might interest a few people, especially given the internet age and the fact that this might operate faster than it did in the 90s. ESG supporting Bank of America offers zero down payment, zero closing cost mortgages, but only for Black and Hispanic communities. Now, I don't want to put a racial tone on this, but unfortunately, we may be in a situation where that might have to happen here because, I mean, they're looking to come back out and improve and get people out of certain neighborhoods in certain cities. And unfortunately, because of redlining in some of these certain cities, that seems to be who lives in these areas. I don't know whether it's always intentional. I mean, I've lived in one of those areas and I'm willy-ass white. But let's read what The Blaze has to say before I get shut down on YouTube for saying something stupid. From Paul Saka, the Bank of America Corporation announced a new zero down payment, zero closing cost mortgage, but only the offer is only available for Black and Hispanic communities. This is not going to stand up in court by any stretch of the imagination. On Tuesday, Bank of America rolled out a new special purpose credit program called the Community Affordable Loan Solution. Bank of America said the zero down payment, zero closing cost mortgages will only be available to first-time home buyers in Black or African American and or Hispanic Latino neighborhoods in Charlotte, Dallas, Detroit, Los Angeles, and Miami. That's not going to stand up in court. The press release from Bank of America did not mention that the offer was available to other minority communities such as Asian, Native American, or Pacific Islander. The lender also did not make the offer to white communities. Homeownership strengthens our communities and can help individuals and families build up wealth over time, said A.J. Barkley, head of neighborhood communities lending at Bank of America. Our community affordable loan solution will help make your dream of sustained homeownership attainable for more Black and Hispanic families, and it's part of our broader commitment to the communities that we serve. Barkley told Bloomberg that the applicants don't need to disclose their race. The mega bank will utilize U.S. Census data to determine which eligible neighborhoods are predominantly Black or Hispanic. Full stop. Now, I would be interested to find out what neighborhoods that they're going from, because obviously, again, they're using census data to decide, oh, well, this is your address right now, this is where you live. Oh, well, we think that you'll be eligible for this loan, so come on in here and let's do some mortgage banking. And again, I mean, under these circumstances, I would actually qualify. Although not being in one of these cities. And just as a for instance, like, if I would have applied when I was living in Kenosha, east of 22nd Avenue, between 52nd and 60th Streets, oh yeah, I would have qualified for this. Absolutely. If they had done a similar program up there. You bet your ass I would have qualified for that. But part of the question is, when I see something like this, is what is the actual financial situation of the neighborhoods that they're looking for? And I think that I know. You got a lot of people concentrated in one area who are typically renting, possibly on Section 8, renting in a place where the owner of the house has never seen the house because he just bought it at a real estate auction from his cushy home in Chicago, and he sends somebody over there to collect the rent or do all the repairs. Sounds an awful lot like the neighborhood that I used to live in, which is telling me that some of these banks, in the name of equity, are going to start giving out loans to certain people who probably have no business getting a loan. And again, I'm not bringing race into this, even though Bank of America is, because when I lived in a neighborhood like that, I had no business getting a home loan either. I could barely keep the roof over my head that I had because I lived in a non-Section 8 house. But if you're going to be going through and finding, oh, well, who's redlined to where, then yeah, you're going to start running into some of that. And it's unfortunate. It's the 90s and the 08 housing crisis all over again. We'll see what happens with that and where that goes. Reading one from Fortune magazine, where the U.S. housing market goes next, as told by two charts. From Lance Lambert. This spring, the Fed dusted off the old inflation-fighting playbook. It goes like this. The central bank applies upward pressure on long-term interest rates, including mortgage rates, through signaling that short-term rates will soon rise. Those spiking mortgage rates then push both home sales and home building lower. That causes demand for commodities like lumber and concrete and durable goods like countertops and refrigerators to fall. Those economic contractions then spread throughout the rest of the economy and in theory help to curtail inflation. What did I tell you right from the beginning? What did I tell you right from the beginning? The goal is to get you out of the market. The government and the rich people that they love still get to go back and spend like idiots, but they want you out of the market. The housing correction phase, of course, has already begun. Across the country, home shoppers are putting their home search on pause. On a year-over-year basis, new home sales and existing home sales are down 29.6% and 20.2%, and single-family housing starts and mortgage purchase applications are down 18.5% and 23% respectively. Simply put, housing activity is contracting fast. Oh, that's all that we have, because it's not archived. Haha, I win. Regardless of what you call it, a housing correction, a housing recession, or a housing downturn, it is far from over. Just look at the mortgage rates. Heading into the year, the average 30-year fixed mortgage rate sat at 3.1%. That's long gone. On Thursday, it climbed to 6.23%, the second highest mortgage reading rate of 2022. If a borrower took out a $500,000 mortgage at 3.2% rate, he'd see a $2,162 monthly payment. At the 6.23% rate, that monthly payment would be $3,072 over the 30-year loan. These elevated mortgage rates, coupled with frothy home prices that jumped 43% during the pandemic, simply make the new monthly payments unaffordable for many would-be buyers. Other households have lost their mortgage eligibility altogether. As long as mortgage rates and home prices both remain this high, industry leaders say the housing market will continue to slump. Earlier this week, Goldman Sachs released a revised forecast. The investment bank now projects the housing GDP will fall 8.9% in 2022 and another 9.2% in 2023. That would mark the first housing downturn of the first post-Great Financial Crisis era. The culprit, the affordability crunch, caused by spiking mortgage rates. The bad news for buyers, it could be a while before there's much rate relief. I still expect fixed rates to average 5.5% throughout the remainder of the year, said Mark Zandi, chief economist at Moody's, tells Fortune. Once the labor market begins to weaken, Zandi says financial markets should begin to ease up on mortgage rates in theory. A weakened labor market coupled with falling inflation would lead the Fed to ease up on its inflation fight. However, if the overheated labor market persists, rates could go even higher. Of course, the job market remains resilient, and the Fed will need to tighten even more aggressively than markets are anticipating, and mortgage rates would go higher, and the ultimate damage to the housing market would be greater, notes Zandy. So, again, right from what I said from the beginning, the goal is to get you out of the market. Take a bunch of potential home buyers out of the market, either through the interest rates or the fact that, they're losing their jobs. We're seeing layoffs coming out of this. We're seeing the stagflationary cycle. People can't afford to go buy the durable goods, the house, the car. They can't afford to get the home equity loan to go and redo the kitchen, to completely revamp the bathroom, or even fix some of the things around their homes. And we're going to start to see some of that too as we go. Where some of these houses are going to go onto the market because you can't afford to go and fix something that's wrong, so, I guess I'm going to have to sell this at a major loss. These are not good times for the average person. They're great times for the investment class, for the BlackRocks, for the government investment class, etc. And they're great times for the people who can just go back and print up another $47 billion to go send out to Ukraine. But for you and me, it wasn't the worst of times, but we're getting there. So we'll see what happens with that and where we go with that. All right, a little bit of irony, a little bit of humor to start us off as we move out of the finance sector because, well, that's always depressing. I want to go back to the blaze. Ironic photo of West Virginia coal miners pushing a stranded electric car of a tourist goes viral. Another one from Paul Saka. An EV ran out of juice on a road in West Virginia. Thankfully for the driver, there was an ironic group that came to the rescue. 5 coal miners. So, there you go. The car was normally operated by coal, but on this particular instance, when the photo was taken, it was operated by the people who give you the coal. Randy Smith, a Republican member of the West Virginia Senate, representing District 14, and a coal miner shared an intriguing situation that happened on Friday. An electric car ran out of battery charge on US 48 and stopped right in front of the Matiki Coal access road in Tucker County. Luckily for the stranded driver from out of town, workers from the fossil fuel mine were ready to help out. Some days are just better than others, Smith wrote on a Facebook post. Today, at our mine off of Corridor H, an electric car from DC ran out of battery at the road entrance to the mine. Someone called one of our foremen and told him the car was broke down in the middle of the haul road. Smith added he went to investigate and found out that they had indeed run out of juice coming from DC to Davis for a getaway weekend. The foreman wanted to tow the electric vehicle with a truck, but EV was all plastic underneath and nothing to hook up to. The foreman went to the coal mine to enlist some workers to help push the electric car to the guardhouse. Then 5 miners pushed the electric car to the coal mine, which was captured in an ironic photo. If you look closely, you can see our coal stockpile and loadout in the background, Smith explained. And there it is. You get the nice big push, all the coal miners pushing, and then a nice big extension cord to get the car charged back up. I wonder how long that took without a turbocharger, by the way. Without the super fast Tesla supercharger. I wonder how long that actually went. But the irony is not lost on me, and we're looking at a lot of fun with this because, again, the car is powered by coal. But my wind and my solar and my renewables. No, it's powered by coal. Especially there. But also, he drives the car because he wants to leave and get rid of his imprint of fossil fuels on the nation. And he just happens to break down in front of the fossil fuel plant. I found it funny. Alright, let's talk strategy. From CNN to start with, Trump is back in the headlines and it may cost Republicans in November. This is an analysis, which is an op-ed from Harry Enton. Midterms tend to follow a predictable script. The party in the White House loses seats, in the Senate, and especially in the House. Political scientists call this a presidential penalty. History, though, can be a guiding force. There is always an analogy to what is happening in the present. This year we have a duly elected president in Joe Biden. We also, however, have a former president in Donald Trump whose residence was searched by the FBI and who continues to falsely claim that the election he lost for another term was fraudulently decided. This unusual situation where we begin our look at the week of politics, that was, as we try to figure out what happened to the presidential penalty when there are two presidents in the spotlight. Trump could cost the GOP control of Congress. Anyone who's read my pieces on the midterm elections knows how skeptical I used to be about Democrats' chances in November. The belief was rooted in the history of the presidential penalty. Sometimes, though, you have to look at the facts on the ground and realize the things aren't what you think that they were. Democrats have been gaining around the ground in their bid to hold the U.S. Senate and House. Trump likely has a lot to do with that, canceling out the normal midterm penalty with his own midterm penalty. Right now, the generic congressional ballot is basically even. If anything, Democrats have a lead of a little less than a point average. Earlier this summer, Republicans had a roughly 3-point advantage. A lot has happened that may have caused the political shift, including the overturning of Roe and falling gas prices. But when you look at people's search interests online, it's easy to see that Trump is playing a big role too. Biden and Trump were running basically even in the number of people searching for both men on Google during the first part of the year. Over the past 90 days, though, Trump has been getting a little less than 60% of the searches that were either for him or Biden. Over the past 30 days, north of 60% of such searches have been for Trump. To see a former president having more people search for him than the current president would be hard to imagine under any circumstance. Trump and Barack Obama at this point in their presidencies were getting closer to 90% of all the search traffic between their predecessors and them. The correlation is a high 0.7 on a scale of -1 to +1 between the percentage of searches for Trump, comparing with Biden in a rolling 14-day average and Democrat margin on the generic ballot since the beginning of the year. It is a statistically significant relationship. And I said kind of the same thing on Twitter on Saturday, as we were sitting here talking about the speech, the major speech. I listened to the speech and we talked about it for the majority of the Friday show. I think we talked about it for almost the entire Friday show. The speech from hell, the speech that shouldn't have happened. And in this, Sam Janney, Politibunny over on Twitter, who is also a writer over at Twitchy, gives us a reminder. Unemployment ticked back up. Gas prices are ticking back up. We're depending on bad actors for our energy. Inflation is record-breaking. Taxes are being raised. Food shortages are still very real. Crime is up in communities. Public education is a mess. Hashtag Biden's America. And my response to that was a quote tweet. And I said, very much, if the GOP wants to win in the House and Senate, they will post this, plus play the first 10 minutes of that dictatorial speech on loop for the next 10 months. 2 months, not 10 months. Wow, I'm really tired this morning, apparently. And that's important. The problem with the midterms is just like CNN pointed out as we were talking about this. When Trump is in the news, and there has been a concerted effort to keep him in the news, especially, that's really when you boil down to the speech that Biden gave on Thursday, that is the exact 100% reason why he gave that speech. It wasn't meant to go back out and terrify the people whom he would be putting in boxcars if you took his speech to its logical conclusion, the way that he worded it. But I don't think he believes that he wants to do that. What I think that he wanted to do was get Trump back in headlines, to get people to say the name Donald Trump over and over again. And I think this one actually backfired on him, but if the GOP wants to win, or if you want to see Democrats get spanked this November, not necessarily if you're GOP. I know a lot of you people who watch this program are not GOP. I am not GOP. But I don't want to live under what we're living under right now, with gas prices $3, $4, and $5 a gallon. With the dollar that I have in my pocket, this dollar right here, losing 10% of its value almost, year over year, every single month. if you want to see a GOP win, you would never say the word Donald Trump again, or the words Donald Trump again, until the midterms are over. Don't speak his name. Don't talk about him. Don't talk about Mar-a-Lago. Don't talk about the documents. Don't talk about classified. Don't talk about empty folders. Don't talk about safest and most secure election in history. Don't talk about January 6th. The focus should be only on what Sam wrote there and then what I wrote above it. The speech, the demonization of 74 million people in this country. Your finance, what is happening in your household. The crime, the food shortages. The focus should be on what Biden is doing. Now, Biden is in a little bit of an advantage right now, because we haven't been in a situation like this since Clinton was elected in 1992. And although HW did remove himself from the public life after that, thank God, and didn't go back to try to run again in 1996, thank God, in spite of that, that's the last time we've had a single-term president, was HW. A president who would be eligible to run again. That is giving Biden a little bit of an advantage, because people are talking about Trump because he is eligible to run again. And realistically, honestly, he probably wants to. As was pointed out in a debate that I watched yesterday, he wants, there's the only thing that he's left to do. He's been rich, he's been powerful, he's been famous, he's been a TV star, he's been in movies, and he's been the president. The only thing that he has left to do is to be a second-term president. That is it. That's the only goal he really has yet to achieve. He's had the hot supermodel wife 3 times over. There's one thing left. So that gives people a reason to go back and talk about him still. But no, if you want to see GOP control for the next 2 months, never say the word Trump, ever. It's this. It's this right here. So, that is what we see for that. Let's grab one from the Daily Wire. DeSantis reveals keys for Republican Party to win back House and Senate in 2022. From Daily Wire News. Florida Republican Governor Ron DeSantis revealed the keys late this week for the Republican Party to win back control of the U.S. House and the U.S. Senate in this fall's midterm elections. Appearing on Fox News Friday evening, DeSantis told the Ingram Angle that the key to winning was to telling voters that Biden would be held accountable for the disasters that have unfolded during his presidency. That's kind of in a similar vein of what I just said. We'll hold Biden accountable, DeSantis told guest host Raymond Arroyo. This is a referendum on his failures. Make sure everybody knows how his policies have contributed to the mess that we're in. And then articulate what you will do to address things like the border, like crime and inflation. I think that if you do that, I think Republicans are going to win both chambers, and I think it'll be a really good night. DeSantis also weighed in on the Biden admin trying to blame Republicans for school lockdowns during the pandemic, while many Democrat politicians actually supported closing schools. Well, first of all, the pandemic didn't cause those setbacks. Lockdown policies of Democrat governors, Anthony Fauci, national teachers unions who wanted the schools closed, they're the ones who caused that, DeSantis said. In Florida, we said you have the right to be in school and you need to be in school. We've done much better as a result. But it wasn't the pandemic, because all it required was leadership to say that we needed to keep kids in schools. Those Democrats and those unions and the left and Fauci, they chose ideology over what was right for those kids. And the damage is going to be lasting, regardless of what Fauci wants to tell you. Look, I am a big advocate for getting the kids out of the public schools. You know that. That's not news to anybody who's watching this program right now. But in and of itself, and I can see where some of this problem is starting to come off of this, because I said right at the beginning when they started closing down schools, when parents started looking over shoulders, when they started to tell kids, don't be in the same room as your parents while we're giving your lessons. Please be somewhere private, because it's the only way you can focus is if you're somewhere private away from your parents while we're giving lessons. The reality of the teachers union is, yes, while it was very nice of them and they thought that it was nice for them to work from home, they did come to a point where not having those kids in the building is going to be a detriment to them and their cause. So I'm not surprised right now when they're coming back to try to blame Republicans for what happened during the pandemic. Let me see if this is a longer clip or if this is a shorter one. If it's a longer one, we're not going to watch it, but if it's a shorter one, we'll go over it here. Let's listen. Oh yeah, they brought it down towards the end. Yeah, let's listen to what Ron DeSantis had to say.
School closings during COVID were devastating, but this national test results, this report card, shows that the pandemic erased 2 decades of progress in math and reading. Democrats are now trying to blame Republicans, which we'll get to a bit later in the show. But I have to ask you, you took a lot of criticism for reopening those schools early in Florida. What is your message tonight for those trying to blame you and Trump for these educational setbacks?
Well, first of all, the pandemic didn't cause those setbacks. Lockdown policies of Democrat governors, Anthony Fauci, national teachers unions who wanted schools closed, they are the ones that caused that. In Florida, we said you have a right to be in school and you need to be in school, and we've done much better as a result. But it wasn't the pandemic, because all it required was leadership to say we need to keep kids in school. And those Democrats and those unions and the left and Fauci, they chose ideology over what was right for those kids. And the damage is going to be lasting regardless of what Fauci wants to tell you.
Governor, before I let you go, we see the polls tightening, the generic polls moving into these generic ballots, moving into the midterms. What would be your advice to the Republican Party? What notes should they strike in these closing days, and how should they counter what we heard from President Biden last night?
Well, hold Biden accountable. This is a referendum on his failures. Make sure everybody knows how his policies have contributed to the mess we're in, and then articulate what you will do to address things like the border, like crime, like inflation. I think if you do that, I think Republicans are going to win both chambers, and I think it'll be a really good night.
Governor Ron DeSantis, thank you for making the time. Happy Labor Day to you, and we'll talk to you soon, I hope.
Hey, Sean Hannity here. Hey, click here to subscribe to Fox News.
Because, of course, it's Sean Hannity. Why wouldn't it be? Earlier in the interview, DeSantis slammed Biden for the divisive speech that he delivered on Thursday in Philadelphia, where he demonized millions of Americans as being extremists who are a threat to democracy. He ran as a unifier and basically saying the vast majority of the country that disapproves of him, that they're effectively a threat to the republic, DeSantis said. He dodders, he lashes out, but at the end of the day, his policies are why there's so much opposition to him. And again, and realistically, like I had said, when I said this, and when we were talking about this, realistically, that is why they're trying to shift the focus on Trump. They can't blame Trump for what's happening in the country, but if they can get, if he is the kind of person who sucks all the air out of the room. All the air gets sucked out of the room when people start talking about the Donald. And that's all they can talk about. And if that's all they can talk about, they don't have time to talk about how bad it is that you're losing your job. How bad it is that your dollar is worth 8.5% less than it was at this time last year. And 16.2% less than it was at this time the year before. So, that's our strategy segment. Let's talk about Biden's strategy here. We will start with the Washington Free Beacon. I don't know why it is that somebody let this man come back out and talk in front of people, but they did. Let's listen. Especially Peter Doocy.
All right.
Mr. President, do you consider all
Trump supporters to be a threat to the country.
Go, everyone.
Come on, look, guys. You keep trying to make that case. I don't consider any Trump supporter I do think anyone who calls for the use of violence fails to condemn violence when it's used, refuses to acknowledge when an election has been won, insists upon changing the way in which the rules you count votes. That is a threat to democracy. Democracy. Everything we stand for rests on the platform of democracy. When people voted for Donald Trump and supported him now, they weren't voting for attacking the Capitol. They weren't voting for overruling the election. They were voting for a philosophy he put forward. So I am not talking about anything other than it is inappropriate, and it's not only happening here, but other parts of the world, where there's a failure to recognize and condemn violence whenever it's used for political purposes, failure to condemn the attempt to manipulate electoral outcomes, failure to acknowledge when elections were won or lost.
No. I'm not saying that all the people that I said were bad were bad. It's just the people that used violence. The bank of people that you're talking about, they just voted for philosophy. Get the heck out of here.
All right.
Reading from The Hill, Biden. I don't consider any Trump supporter to be a threat to the country, man. Come on. From Brett Samuels. President Biden on Friday said he does not view supporters of the former president as a threat to the country 1 day after he delivered a speech describing MAGA Republicans as a danger to democracy and the soul of the nation. I don't consider any Trump supporter to be a threat to democracy, Biden told reporters when asked about the distinction. I do think anyone who calls for the use of violence, fails to condemn violence when it's used, or refuses to acknowledge an election has been won, and insists upon changing the way that we rule and count votes, that's a threat to democracy. Biden said he was specifically speaking about those who seek to cast doubt on elections or who fail to condemn violence. It was totally the Russians. The Russians did it. They installed the Putin puppet. Those people who cast doubt on an election? Probably not. The president on Thursday night tied Trump and other so-called MAGA Republicans to corrosive ideas like casting doubt on election results, spreading conspiracy theories, and attacking law enforcement. The president has faced criticism from Republicans who, in the wake of his speech, accused Biden of being the divider-in-chief and broadly painting those who support Trump as a danger to democracy. Honestly, it wasn't even just Republicans who were criticizing him. I've seen a lot of independents who looked at this and said, maybe this is still a bit too far. And even some Democrats are looking at this and saying, dude, what are you doing? We can't do this right now. But then he went back and walked it forward once again. This tweet coming yesterday, September 4th. President Biden, the MAGA agenda represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. It doesn't respect our Constitution. It doesn't believe in the rule of law. And it doesn't recognize the will of the people. So he goes in front of Ducey and says all the nice, pretty words of, no, they weren't voting for the things that I said yesterday. They were voting for philosophy. And then a day later, that philosophy doesn't respect our Constitution and it doesn't believe in the rule of law. Another one from the Free Beacon. Before and after. Let's listen.
I don't consider any Trump support. Donald Trump and the MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. I don't consider.
Interesting. Interesting that we go there. From CNN, Biden clarifies what he meant by MAGA Republicans. More video. After delivering a primetime speech calling out MAGA Republicans, President Biden clarifies who he was talking about, explaining that he wasn't calling all Trump supporters a threat to democracy. This might actually be the same video we saw with Ducey. Let's listen now.
Just hours after delivering a fiery speech calling out MAGA Republicans, as he refers to them, President Biden is clarifying who he was targeting in his primetime speech. Moments ago, the president saying he was not calling all Trump supporters a threat to democracy, just those who call for violence and attempt to overturn elections.
I don't consider any Trump support.
Yeah, this is the same video.
I do think anyone who calls for the use of violence fails to condemn violence when it's used, refuses to acknowledge when an election has been won, insists upon changing the way in which the rules you count votes. That is a threat to democracy. When people vote for Donald Trump and support him now, they weren't voting for attacking the Capitol. They weren't voting for overruling the election. They were voting for a philosophy he put forward.
It's kind of ironic that he says it that way, too.
Why do you think that
Shut up. Democracy. It almost makes you hear it in Ian McDermott's voice. I love democracy. Nikki Haley weighing in on this one. See what Nikki Haley has to say.
The idea that he condemned us was worse than Hillary calling us deplorables, was worse than Obama calling us extremists. He basically called us bad people. Yeah. And the idea that he condemned us was worse than Hillary calling us deplorables, was worse than Obama calling us extremists. He basically called us bad people. Yeah.
I apologize for the clip on that one being so low. It's the way that they put it up on Twitter. There isn't really anything that I can do with that. But Nikki, I don't know where you've been for the last, 40 years, but that's been the playbook for anybody who doesn't go with the Democrat Party line since the 80s, at least. Maybe even a little bit before that. And it's not just the GOP, although they're the most prominent one with that. It's anybody who doesn't go with the liberal progressive party line. It's anybody. A person with that flag standing up behind him who just wants to be left alone, who wants to sit in his home, make videos, and go to work and come home every day, and doesn't really want to go in and contribute to everything and take care of everybody else around him. He wants to take care of the people that he cares about and try to get as much government out of the way as it can so other people can do the same thing without all the government intervention that's involved. Somebody who thinks that cutting off the welfare systems would balance out the economy. Those people are bad people. The person who just wants to be left alone. The person who hears the word social contract and says, I never signed a contract. That's been their playbook. Either vote Democrat or you're a bad person. For as long as I can remember. And I mean, in Bush's case, it's absolutely true. But also, again, as pointed out, And I actually looked at this trend over in the other window while we were watching a different video. But yeah, they're desperately right now trying to keep the Donald in the headlines. Dementia Don and Adderall, which I opened that up in the other window, and it turns out to be a bunch of people talking about the former president's use of Adderall, which is not confirmed, by the way. They are desperate to keep people talking about Trump and not talking about this speech. Don't let them. Don't fall into the trap. Again, if you want to see Democrats get spanked coming up in November, the only thing you should be talking about is that divisive speech and the economic shambles that we're in right now. From The Blaze, MSDNC political analyst says Biden's anti-MAGA speech was an urgent wartime address. From Paul Saka, we do have video of this. Let's read a little bit into this first. President Biden delivered a divisive primetime speech on Thursday that targeted the supporters of former President Trump. An MSDNC political analyst described the combative speech as a wartime address. Twitter reactions denounced the categorization as foolish and dangerous. Now, we might not be able to see any of the replies because as we were scrolling down and I looked at the video, I realized that it was John Cooper who tweeted out the video that The Blaze is using, and he blocked me. Speaking in front of Independence Hall in Philly, Biden delivered a speech billed as the battle for the soul of a nation. Biden claimed that Trump and MAGA Republicans represent an extremism that threatens the very foundations of our republic. And we talked about that. Biden quoted J. Michael Luttig, a former Court of Appeals judge for the Fourth Circuit, who called Trump a clear and present danger to American democracy during the January 6th Selfie Fest hearing in June. He said that MAGA Republicans embrace anger, thrive on chaos, and live not in the light of truth, but in the shadow of lies. Washington Post columnist and MSDNC political analyst Eugene Robinson categorized Biden's speech as a wartime address. Let's listen. Oh, it's a different John Cooper. This one doesn't have me blocked.
He framed this as an emergency, as something that we as a nation need to bond together to stop and to reverse and to return to our democratic principles and our democratic practices. And to me, it was an urgent wartime address.
That'll make you a little bit nervous, because it sounds to me like they're getting ready to go to war. And again, I don't think they are. I think they're going to go back and bluster, and I do think a lot of the point of this was to try to keep the Donald in the news cycle. I don't necessarily think that they're going to run back out and try to go, well, maybe Swalwell will get a hold of the nuke codes and take out Montana or something, but that's what we see for that. The military, that's been a sticking point with all of this here. The Washington Free Beacon, again, major contributor to this episode of Contemporary. Token diversity hire, talking about the presence of Marines at Biden's speech. Let's listen.
Women who protect us every day and fight for it every day believe in as well. The presence of the Marines at the speech was intended to demonstrate the deep and abiding respect the president has for these service members, to these ideals and the unique role our independent military plays in defending our democracy, no matter which party is in power. Again, no matter which party is in power. Women who protect us every day and fight for it every day believe in as well. The presence of the Marines at the speech was intended to demonstrate the deep and abiding respect the president has for these service members, to these ideals and the unique role our independent military plays in defending our democracy.
Okay, number one, our military is not independent. That's first and foremost. And number two, when we look at something like this, I mean, if I was one of those two Marines and ordered to stand at attention behind Biden for the entire speech, If that was my order, I'd be filing agreements against the U.S. Marine Corps right now, because that is, first and foremost, that's a conflict of interest. You're not supposed to be using military members in that fashion. But second, and this is more important, as soon as I started hearing the words off of this, I would have been AWOL. When I hear the leader of the free world telling me that half the country, it's not half, it's not even close, MAGA is dead, MAGA is dying. When I hear the leader of the free world tell us that half of his own country is the source of everybody else's problems, I would not want to be involved in the military at all. I mean, that would be the point where I'd start tendering my resignation. Start looking for ways out of the contract, or again, finding a way to be the deserter. Because when I start hearing a speech like that, I start to hear orders playing out in my head that I don't want to follow. Now, importantly after this, and one of the things that I've talked about on and off Twitter with what happened with this speech, is that I don't think blustering Biden is going to go back out and start pulling us out of our homes. It's fun to talk about because it gets a lot of people on the left really, really riled up when you follow what they're trying to say to its logical conclusion, and they realize that they're making the same remarks that the people, and I don't know if they can just not see what they're doing. I mean, how can you not see something like that when they're talking about everybody who stood against the former president being criminal and complicit and should be indicted and prosecuted? I don't know how you can not see that. But realistically, I don't think that he was out there trying to come out and say that, oh yes, no, we're going to go back and we're going to roll up the boxcars, and anybody who is a MAGA Republican is going to the gas chambers, as much as his followers would love to see that, but won't admit to it over on social media. I do think that along with the FBI raid, along with every other push against what these people believe in, that more of the speech was to try to convince the MAGA Republicans that they are in immediate danger and they should go back out and attack an FBI agent or a government building or a government worker or somebody who might drag that person off, kicking and screaming to the gas chambers. I think that was out to inspire a big attack so they can have something going into the midterm saying, see how unhinged and violent these MAGA Republicans are. And when stuff like that doesn't happen, who shows up? Patriot Front! Why wouldn't it be Patriot Front? Let's watch. I never understood how, by the way, our friends to the left can look at something like this. And these are the people who constantly say, gravy seals, oh, meal team 6, all Republicans, all MAGA people are fat, lazy, middle-aged people. And then simultaneously look at something like this and say, well, these are MAGA people, and they're the greatest threat to democracy that ever lived. Look at these organized MAGA people. They're going in like a military. Well, which is it? Is all of MAGA Meal Team 6? Is it all the fat, middle-aged, lazy people out of the middle of the country? Or is it a group of completely jacked, militarized people who seem to have the same kind of marching and training as many of our people in our military and our federal agencies, by the way? But I mean, when you scroll out on this too, I mean, you see all the jacked people up in front, super jacked. But then as you get back out to the tail end of the parade, you do start to see a couple of, I don't know, let's call them the marks, the people that are actually in there getting entrapped, because I'm positive, well, not positive, but I'm pretty sure that's who's out there. But even there, the stocky ones in the back they're not like that stocky, although this one's got quite the gut on him, but he's got the barrel chest and the arms to go with it. And a lot of people are like, who are these people? Dude, they're a front. They're called Patriot Front for a reason, because they are a front. It's always interesting as well. Big shades, masks, a hat. Anything that would take away any recognizable detail about them. The ones with tattoos wear long sleeves. It's almost like they don't want anybody to know who they are. To possibly run them through an FBI database by facial recognition. Are they scared that they would pop as employees? I don't know. Let's read about this from WISHTV.com, News 8. Video captures neo-Nazis marching streets in downtown Indianapolis. From Divine Triplet. Oops. Wrong button. That's the one I wanted. News 8 received reports about Patriot Front marching in the streets of downtown Indianapolis. According to the SPLC, they're a white nationalist hate group that broke off from Vanguard America in the aftermath of the deadly 2017 Unite the Right in Charlottesville, Virginia. Patriot Front posted on Telegram about marching in Indianapolis. According to their website, Indiana is one of the most active states. They've also posted images of recent activity in Noblesville. Brendan Bowe provided News 8 with a video of the march. The video has 340,000 views. Mayor Joe Hogsett said in a statement, "Hate has no place in Indianapolis. The individuals who marched in downtown yesterday do not represent the values of our community, and we condemn the message in the strongest terms possible." News 8's Adam Pinsker set up an interview with Democratic Secretary of State candidate Destiny Wells when the march happened. Wells was only a couple blocks away at the Labor Fest, a rally put out by pro-union groups at Monument Circle. She says she's calling on the state's Republican leadership to condemn Patriot Front. As an attorney who dealt with civil rights law, of course they have First Amendment rights, but let's think about this. We talk about the days when the KKK used to march down the streets of Indiana. Then we have distanced ourselves from that moment in time. I would say that we have boomeranged back. We have the same elements of hate, Wells said. Well, yeah, it's true. I mean, the government does hate you. Brendan Bowe, the citizen who captured the video of the march happening, told News 8 he's embarrassed that Patriot Front came to Indianapolis. Why? Frankly, I think it's embarrassing we're still dealing with these issues. Having armed people in the streets to intimidate minorities and trying to intimidate people around them, and too scared to even show their face. I think it's a level of cowardice and backwardness that shouldn't be there. Dude, they're not Nazis. They're government agents who show up when you can't get another false flag attack or a real attack going somewhere. When you can't bait MAGA into doing something that you want them to do, these guys always seem to show up. They showed up and they did a big march right after the Justice for January 6th rally. And they were at the Justice for January 6th rally. I only know of one person who believes Patriot Front and can't be convinced otherwise. There's only one. From Fox 59, Mayor Hogsett condemns march of Patriot Front in Indianapolis. Touch on this one briefly. Mayor Joe Hogsett has condemned the march of approximately 75 members of a group of researchers called white nationalists and fascists through downtown Indianapolis this weekend. I think we're missing a couple words in this. I think if they'd have put the word "that" in there, 75 members of a group that researchers call white nationalists and fascists, I think I would have been less confused about this. Grammatically, technically, it's correct. But I was so confused while I was reading that. Hate has no place in Indianapolis, read the mayor's statement. The individuals who marched downtown yesterday do not represent values of our community, and we condemn their message in the strongest terms possible. Jeffrey Isaac of the Indiana University, they're pretty well known among people who study these groups. They're a white supremacist group, and they articulate this idea of great replacement, which is widespread among far-right groups in the world today. They claim to reclaim America. Dude, literally nobody had heard of them until after the commie coup. They were still talking about the Pride Boys. Reclaim America was the group's chant, along with a banner that read the same and another that read America is not for sale, as the members marched to the cadence of a drum carrying American flags displayed upside down, while they also railed against the U.S. financial system. I read their manifesto, which is very fascist. They're a fascist group, said Isaac, demonstrating that he has no idea what fascism means. They don't believe in what America is now. One of their texts that they have here is, America is dead. Long live America. The group's website listed Indiana as one of the top 3 activity states earlier this summer, after Patriot Front stickers and posters were found at the IU Fort Wayne campus last winter. A faction of the group was detained in Idaho this past June by authorities who concluded the Patriot Front members were packed in the back of a boxed rental truck on the way to disrupt a Pride celebration. Yeah, I don't buy that one either. Oh, the good mayor condemned the evil Patriot Front. Anyway, from the Blaze. I'm going to gloss over this one because we heard what Token University had to say about them. Let's grab one from CNN then instead. On the other side of the aisle. I know I just said it, but we've got to talk about this one. I know I just said we don't talk about him, but we've got to talk about this one because it's newsworthy. Not because I want you guys to go and take clips of this and spread them around Twitter. Trump rally highlighting a January 6th case of alleged Nazi sympathizer sparks criticism. From Zachary Cohen. Representative Zoe Lofgren, a member of the House panel investigating the January 6th selfie fest, on Sunday called out former President Trump for featuring a speaker during his Saturday rally who highlighted the plight of a January 6th rioter, an alleged Nazi sympathizer who was convicted on all 5 charges he faced in May. When President Biden warns that there are some elements of this extreme group that are semi-fascist, maybe he didn't need to use the semi, the California Democrat told CNN's Jim Acosta on Newsroom, referring to the current president's recent remarks about MAGA Republicans. It was so hard not to call him a nasty name. Biden in late August rebuked Republicans who have stuck to the credo of his predecessor, labeling it semi-fascism. The speaker at Trump's Pennsylvania rally was Cynthia Hughes, the leader of the support group for January 6 defendants, like Timothy Hale Cusinelli, whose case went viral after the Justice Department released photos of him sporting a distinctive Hitler mustache. I don't remember that going viral. And we look at the news every day. I think that one might have been astroturfed. Trump's decision to feature a speaker highlighting such a case when there are hundreds of other Capitol riot defendants to cite as examples prompted a pointed response from Lofgren, also a member of the House Judiciary Committee. Being a supporter of Adolf Hitler does put you in the fascist category. There's no semi about it. I do think this is troubling. Signaling support for Capitol rioters was just one example of how Trump used his first rally since the FBI search of Mar-a-Lago to pander to his base, railing against Biden, whom he called an enemy of the state. The FBI and Justice Department were only briefly touting the Pennsylvania Senate and gubernatorial candidates he was in Wilkes-Barre to campaign for. The rally came just days after the former president said that he would very, very seriously consider full pardons for Capitol rioters if he runs in 2024 and wins. During the Saturday rally, Hughes pointed to the fact that Hale Kusinali, whom she called her nephew, has been in jail since his arrest nearly 2 years ago, as an example of what she called the broader injustice facing defendants of the January 6 related cases. While true that Hale Kusinelli was not charged with any violent crimes, the judge in this case decided he should remain in jail while he awaited trial because he posed a threat to the public and that there was a potential for an escalation of violence from alleged long-held neo-Nazi beliefs. Translation: they found a way to legally detain people without a trial for years of their lives. He's been in for 2 years. I don't care if he tells the world that he doesn't believe in the number 6 million. I don't care what rhetoric he spouts off. If he comes out and says that Uncle A was the greatest person in the world, there is a reason that we have a trial by jury system, where you cannot be deprived of your life, liberty, and pursuit of happiness without a proper cause. And if he's still awaiting trial, then he has been detained, and he has lost his right to life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness without a jury trial. What does he do? Does he get all that back, that time back? We don't do pre-crime in this country either. I think I should keep him in jail for 2 years because there might be violence. That's pre-crime. And they're calling anybody who doesn't agree with them the fascists. Let's skip over that one because that's the same as a CNN article. Let's talk about Podesta from Politico. Climate Chief Gina McCarthy leaving the White House as John Podesta returns. From Zach Coleman and Alex Thompson. Gina McCarthy, President Biden's top domestic climate advisor, will leave the White House on September 16th, just weeks after Congress passed the largest ever U.S. law to tackle climate change, legislation that her office helped craft. McCarthy's exit will leave Biden without one of his climate policy heavyweights, as his admin moves to the next phase of its climate fight, developing executive actions and regulations that can survive the partisan power shifts and Supreme Court scrutiny that have derailed previous Democratic climate plans. Ali Zaidi, McCarthy's deputy, will lead the Climate Policy Office after McCarthy departs. The White House announced that John Podesta, chairman of the Liberal Center for American Progress, will also join the White House as a senior advisor for clean energy innovation and implementation. Former Secretary of State John Kerry, I have to go on my private jet, but you should not be going on a private jet. John Kerry remains in his post as Biden's top international climate envoy. I'm John Kerry. I go to preach about the evils of climate change on my private jet that only me and my family travel on to get from place to place. The admin's allies praise Zaidi and Podesta, who had previously served as a White House climate advisor for former President Barack Obama. I can think of no one more dedicated to stopping climate change than John Podesta, Center for American Progress CEO Patrick Gaspard said in a statement. We're delighted that Ellie is succeeding Gina and have high expectations for more progress to come, the League of Conservation Voters President Gene Karpinski added in a statement. So why is this important? Why is Podesta being tapped for this important? Well, it's simple. Again, as I said at the top of the show, don't worry about the fact, don't worry at all about the fact that all of these big government no-bid contracts out there are going to companies that have ties to the Clintons. Stop noticing things! And it's kind of funny that Politico has glossed over that part of Podesta's career. Oh, we can talk about the fact that he was a climate envoy. He was a major climate change player in the Obama administration. He was also a chief campaign advisor for the Clinton campaign. I think he was wasn't he the chief campaign officer? I know he was up there. Yeah, stop noticing that all these companies have ties to the Clintons. Or Hunter Biden's companies, or China. Stop noticing that. The machine takes care of itself. Speaking of the machine taking care of itself, from the Associated Press. Biden seeks $47 billion for Ukraine. Pinko pox and monkeypox disasters. From Mary Claire Jelonek. President Biden is asking Congress to provide more than $47 billion in emergency dollars that would go towards the war in Ukraine, the response to the COVID-19 pandemic, and the ongoing monkeypox outbreaks, and help for recent natural disasters in Kentucky and other states. The request comes as lawmakers are preparing to return to Washington and fund the government. Seeks $13.7 billion related to Ukraine, including money for equipment, intelligence support, and direct budgetary support. Shalonda Young, the director of the White House Office of Management and Budget. I think they should rename that office to the Office of Management and Spending at this point. Said that more than 3/4 of the $40 billion approved by Congress this year has already been dispersed or committed. We've rallied the world to support the people of Ukraine as they defend their democracy, and we cannot allow that support for Ukraine to run dry, Young said in a blog post. The White House will request will play in congressional budget negotiations in the coming weeks, as financing for federal agencies is set to run out by September 30th. Omnibus away! Both parties will be seeking to avoid a government shutdown in the weeks before the midterm elections, but they will have to work out differences over issues like the Pinko pox aid, which has been a sticking point for many months, as the White House has said more money is needed for vaccines and testing, and Republicans have pointed to the trillions that have already been approved. In Friday's request, the White House is seeking $7.1 billion to procure additional vaccines for replenishing personal protective equipment in a national strategic stockpile. Among other measures, another $8 billion would go to accelerate research for next-gen vaccines and therapeutics. Biden is also seeking $2 billion to continue Pinko pox testing programs, including an initiative to distribute free at-home tests that ended on Friday, as the government says it's running short on funds. Love to see the invoice of that. What that invoice looks like, the one that's going to the company that makes those tests. How much of your taxpayer dollars do you think is going towards those tests? According to this, it's about $7.1 billion. Biden is also seeking $2 billion to continue the Pinko pox testing programs, including in, let's see. Read that one already. Congress has not moved forward on similar administration requests for the Pinko pox response amid the partisan stalemate. White House Press Secretary Token Diversity Hires said the White House has repeatedly warned that there would be trade-offs if the money wasn't approved, and that is precisely what happened. The lack of free testing kits, for example, leaves our domestic testing capacity diminished for a potential fall surge, she says. Oh, right before the midterms, huh? The admin is asking for $4.5 billion to bolster its efforts to fight monkeypox amid the ongoing outbreak. Officials have said they already depleted significant reserves from the national stockpile to provide over 1.1 million vials of vaccine. The money would help to ensure access to vaccinations, testing, and treatment, and also to help fund the global effort to fight the disease, the admin officials said. For disaster relief, the White House is asking for $6.5 billion, including money for the Federal Emergency Management Agency's Disaster Relief Fund, farmers affected by weather events, and efforts to increase the resilience of the electric grid as part of that request. The admin is asking for $1.4 billion to address the unmet disaster recovery needs in several states, including for recent devastating floods in Kentucky. So, you got $978 billion to do infrastructure. You got $750 billion for Build Back Better. How much money have you already sent to Ukraine? And after securing all this money, you still want another $47 billion to keep the government open. At what point do we look at this and say, man, how much are we actually going to sit here and spend? Just in foreign news, China may have committed crimes against humanity in Xinjiang, UN report finds. From Simone McCarthy. China has committed serious human rights violations against Uyghur Muslims in the northwestern region of Xinjiang, which may amount to crimes against humanity, according to a long-awaited report released Wednesday by the UN High Commissioner for Human Rights. The detailed 45-page report, published just minutes before outgoing Commissioner Michelle Bachelet's term in office came to an end at midnight Geneva time, had been repeatedly delayed, and its release vehemently opposed by China. The report, which documented what it described as an arbitrary, discriminatory detention of members of Uyghur and other predominantly Muslim groups within the context of the government's application of counterterrorism and counter-extremism strategies, was hailed by the rights groups as a groundbreaking moment in the effort to hold the Chinese government to account. This report comes 4 years after a committee on the UN experts called attention in August 2018 to credible reports that more than 1 million Uyghurs and other Muslim minority peoples were interned in extrajudicial camps in Xinjiang for re-education and indoctrination. China has fiercely denied committing rights violations and has previously said it established such centers as ways to counter extremism in the region. And since the said facilities were closed, claimed the UN's office could not verify. Dude, we all knew this already. We've been having this conversation for a year. And CNN is just catching up now. But we have more news out of that region of the world from Reuters. Taiwan shoots down drone off Chinese coast. Taiwan's military shot down an unidentified civilian drone that entered its airspace near an islet just off the Chinese coast on Thursday after the government vowed to take tough new measures to deal with an increase in such intrusions. Beijing, which claims Taiwan as its own against the strong objections of the Taipei government, has held military exercises around the island since early last month in reaction to the visit to Taipei by U.S. House of Representatives Speaker Nancy Pelosi. Are we getting Ukraine 2.0 here? Taiwan's government has vowed not to provoke or escalate tensions, but has been particularly anchored recently by repeated cases of Chinese drones buzzing the island controlled by Taiwan close to China's coast. The Defense Command for Kinmen, the group of Taiwan-controlled islands opposite China's Xiamen and Quanzhou cities, sent a statement released by Taiwan's defense ministry that the drone entered restricted airspace over Lion Islet just after midday. Troops on the islet tried warning it away, but to no effect, so shot it down, with the remains landing in the sea it added. Taiwan fired warning shots at a drone for the first time on Tuesday, shortly after President Tsai Ing-wen ordered the military to take strong countermeasures against what it termed as Chinese provocations. So that's getting ready to pop off. Meanwhile, with us being involved again, because why not? China warns of countermeasures as U.S. approves $1.1 billion in arms sales to Taiwan. From Teal Rebane, Sean Deng, and Larry Register and Heather Chen of CNN. Oh, excuse me. China has warned the U.S. will take countermeasures after the Biden admin approved more than $1.1 billion in arms sales to Taiwan. Chinese embassy spokesman Lu Pengyu said on Saturday that China was firmly opposed to the sales, which severely jeopardized China-U.S. relations and peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait, and called on Washington to immediately revoke them. Lu's comments on Twitter came after the Biden admin on Friday formally notified Congress of the proposed sales, which include up to 60 anti-ship missiles and up to 100 air-to-air missiles. The State Department said the sales are in line with the long-standing U.S. policy of providing defensive weapons to the island and described the swift provision of such arms being essential for Taiwan's security. China, however, accused the U.S. of interfering in what it sees as its internal affairs. China's Communist Party claims Taiwan, a self-governing democracy, as part of its own territory, despite never having governed it, and has long vowed to reunify the island with the Chinese mainland by force if necessary. The U.S. interferes in China's internal affairs and undermines China's sovereignty and security interests by selling arms to Taiwan, Lu tweeted. It sends the wrong signals to Taiwan independent separatist forces and severely jeopardizes China-U.S. relations and peace and stability across the Taiwan Strait, Lu said. Otherwise, in that region of the world, from the Associated Press, Russia launches war games with China amid tensions with the U.S. From Vladimir Isachenkov. Russia on Thursday launched week-long war games involving forces from China and other nations in a show of growing defense cooperation between Moscow and Beijing. As we listen to my good friend Seawall tell me that there's no way that China and Russia can work together because they hate each other, and they've always hated each other. The maneuvers are also intended to demonstrate that Moscow has sufficient military might for massive drills, even as its troops are engaged in military action in Ukraine. The Russian Defense Ministry said that Vostok 2022 exercise will be held until September 7th at 7 firing ranges in Russia's Far East and Sea of Japan and involve more than 50,000 troops, over 5,000 weapon units, including 140 aircraft and 60 warships. Russian General Staff Chief General Valery Gerasimov will personally oversee the drills involving troops from several ex-Soviet nations: China, India, Laos, Mongolia, Nicaragua, and Syria. The Defense Ministry noted that as part of the maneuvers, the Russia and Chinese navies in the Sea of Japan will practice joint action to protect sea communications, areas of marine economic activity, and support for ground troops in littoral areas. I'm surprised Nicaragua got in on this. Are we fighting with Nicaragua right now, and I don't even know it? Beijing sent more than 2,000 troops along with 300 military vehicles, 21 combat aircraft, and 3 warships to take part in the drills, Chinese news reports said. China's Global Times newspaper noted the maneuvers marked the first time that China has sent forces from 3 branches of its military to take part in a single Russian drill in what it described as a show of the breadth and depth of China-Russia military cooperation and mutual trust. I'm going to save this article and send this out to Seawall and see what he has to say, because again, he assures me that there's no way that this could actually happen because they hate each other. Another one from Reuters. Arizona governor, latest U.S. official to visit Taiwan. Doug Ducey is due to arrive in Taiwan on Tuesday, the island's foreign ministry said. the latest in a succession of officials from the U.S. to visit, defying pressure from China for such trips not to take place. During his 3-day visit, Ducey will meet with Taiwan President Tsai Ing-wen and with companies in the semiconductor industry. The world's largest contract chip maker, Taiwan Semiconductor Manufacturing, is building a $12 billion plant in the state of Arizona. So, I mean, it makes sense for Ducey to go back and do this because of the business interests of Taiwan, but in a situation where we're sitting here now and wondering when this is all going to pop off and who in our country is going to be over there when it does, and I don't know, some of the war pigs in the State Department sitting here breathing heavily saying, just kill one of ours. Oh, we want to go back to war. We want to go back to war so bad. It's a strange time in the South Pacific. Definitely is. From the Hill, John Harwood is leaving CNN. From Dominic Mastrangelo, John Harwood, one of CNN's most recognizable reporters, even though I have no idea who he is leaving the network. Harwood made the announcement in a tweet on Friday, and he did not specify if he was leaving CNN on his own terms or if he had been let go by the cable news giant. Today is my last day at CNN, Harwood said, adding that he was proud of the work that he did at the network and was lucky to serve the best in American media before listing previous career stops at CNBC, the New York Times, a former newspaper, and the Wall Street Journal. A CNN spokesperson on Friday told The Hill that we appreciate John's work covering the White House and we wish him all the best. Harwood is the latest in a slew of top talent at CNN that has left the network in recent weeks as the new president, Chris Licht, begins to mold it into what he had promised its advertisers and audience will be a renewed commitment to objectivity, fairness, and sobriety in the news reporting. Critics of the network, primarily on the political right, routinely blasted CNN under previous president Jeff Zucker for what they often said was sensationalism about a partisan slant to the left. Last month, Licht canceled the Sunday media show Reliable Sources, and the network parted ways with its host, Brian Stelter. Weeks earlier, the legal pundit Jeffrey Toobin announced that he too would be leaving the network because he needs to go out on a Zoom call and, well, you know. So Harwood is out. Not 100% sure who that person is, even though he's the most recognizable reporter. Let's see if I can look at a picture of the dude and see who he is. Nope, no idea. I've got one from The Wrap, which I believe is a CNN subsidiary. John Harwood's abrupt exit adds fuel to the boycott CNN. There's no both sides to fascism. From Lori Sietz. John Harwood's abrupt exit from CNN on Friday added fuel to the boycott CNN fires. Many grow wary of the network's centrist move. If CNN is moving Trumpward, let them know that you're not happy, one user tweeted on Sunday. Ditto canning John Harwood. Harwood, the network's White House correspondent, announced that it was his last day at CNN on Friday, hours after describing Donald Trump as a dishonest demagogue in his analysis of the president's national address on Thursday evening, in which the president warned that MAGA Republicans are threatening to undermine U.S. democracy. While he was analyzing one of the most demagogic speeches in history, he blasted the subject as a demagogue. Harwood, 65, shared his departure on Twitter, writing, "Personal news, today's my last day at CNN. Proud of the work. Thanks to my colleagues. I've been lucky to serve in the American media, the best in American media. St. Petersburg Times, Wall Street Journal, New York Times, the NBC family, CNN will look forward to figuring out what's next. The original call to boycott CNN began in August after suspicion that John Malone, Warner Brothers Discovery shareholder and billionaire media mogul, might have been behind canceling Stelter's reliable sources. Although Malone, who has previously supported Trump, denied that he was involved in the decision, in an email to the New York Times, he noted that he wants the news portion of CNN to be more centrist, but he is not in control or directly involved. The controversy has done anything but settle down in the following weeks, and Harwood's sudden exit, which many speculate came as a result of calling out Trump from the network, has ignited an even larger discussion about CNN's values. Just uninstalled the CNN app from my phone. I had it for years, one user tweeted Sunday. There's no both sides to fascism. I'm the daughter of 2 Holocaust survivors. And yet you could look at that speech, the one that came out from Independence Hall, and not be worried. The firing of Harwood on CNN because John Malone, major shareholder of the company and a Trump supporter, is another sad day for American award-winning journalists that report the truth to defend our democracy, another tweeted. Some connected Harwood's departure to Stelter's recent exit, with one noting both journalists consistently exposed Trump's extremism and authoritarianism. Firing Brian Stelter and now John Harwood, coupled with what is increasingly feeling like a coordinated effort to push Republican talking points and both sides' fascism, has made it impossible for me to continue to watch. Another person wrote on Sunday, so I'm out. Yeah, there have been a lot of people out there like that, including that wonderful crazy-eyed idiot, Dabrowski, which I actually have a, would I call it a documentary on him, queued up over here that I kind of want to watch. I want to listen to and see what it is that they have to say about that. Because it's been the thing. You see, and these people praise CNN when they were pushing out the propaganda. And it was propaganda. I mean, we've been reading CNN on this program from the beginning, pointing out what's true and what is sensationalism. Since the first day I opened up and said, and this is contemporary, CNN, I think, has been on the docket almost every single day since then. Because I can listen to both sides of everything. I mean, I've been accused of just getting all my news from Daily Wire, Blaze, and Fox News. You guys have talked to some of these people in the chat. And that's a big difference between people like myself, people on the right, and people on the left, who need to be fed a constant drip, a constant supply of propaganda, strengthening and upholding the values that they hold dear. They can't hear anything from the other side. And if they do, if somebody does try to say something like that, all they know from childhood on, and I'm talking core millennials, not elder millennials, but core millennials, late millennials, and Generation Z, all they ever knew was shouting anybody that they disagree with down. So, that's what they say for that. Here's one. Bill Baker. How to let CNN know we're not happy with their move to the right. CNN uses these statistics to measure engagement. Uninstall CNN apps from all phones and tablets. 2. Block all CNN personalities on Twitter and Facebook. 3. Don't tune TV to CNN. 4. Share with others. It's so terrible that you can't hear even a modicum of dissenting thought. Daily Wire. Network-wide purge, CNN staffers panic as woke employees heads roll under new company chief. So this is internal from them. From Ryan Saavedra. Employees at CNN are reportedly panicking as Chris Licht, the company's new chairman and CEO, is continuing to cut some of the network's most hyper-partisan leftist talent. Daily Mail reported that staffers on the far-left network, which is trying to become more nonpartisan, fear a network-wide purge of woke talent at the company. People are freaked out, one CNN journalist said. It almost feels like there's a pattern. Is there a purge going on? They do seem to be sending a message. Watch what you say, watch what you do. Longtime CNN personalities are disappearing, and the viewers don't know why, another CNN employee said. A producer for the network said it was an unsettling from the top to the bottom at CNN, and that no one is happy right now. The panic comes after CNN parted ways with hard-left White House correspondent John Harwood this week, following hyper-partisan remarks from Harwood, including a tweet from which Harwood claimed Biden's assertion that Trump is an extremist, Republicans pose a threat to American democracy, is undeniable true. During the 2016 presidential campaign, Harwood reached out to Hillary Clinton's campaign chairman John Podesta and asked him, what should I ask Jeb? The Hill noted at the time that Jeb Bush, at the time the email was sent, was the leading Republican contender to take on Clinton. Well, you got away with how many years of being absolutely hard left? And CNN wasn't bad before. I mean, they were nonpartisan. One of the things that Licht said when he came in was that, really honestly, he wanted to try to take the company in a different direction because of the fact that it was failing. What happened with CNN Plus? Now, all these hyper-partisans who say they're uninstalling the CNN app from their phones because, well, I just can't do it. Where were they during CNN Plus? Where were they to try to prop up the network? I got a feeling that if CNN Plus itself had been able to stand on its own, Zucker might not have been found out about his alleged affair with somebody who was completely old enough, consensual, and in it, and into it. And by the way, I don't think that's the reason that he was pushed out either. I think that's how they saved face. And Chris Licht might not be there. So, little Twitter leftoids who are crying that you're not getting your daily dose of propaganda, maybe you should ask yourself why you couldn't open up your wallets to pay for your CNN Plus. Alright, what else do we have? Some of the reactions. Excuse me. Jojo from Jers. Today I've decided that I'm done watching CNN. Adam in H-Town, Texas, not a biologist, says, wait, you're broke and you still haven't canceled your cable package in order to cut expenses? Yeah, mine's gone. Jason S. Is she really broke? I guess there's always OnlyFans. And Adam says, she's got a Patreon link in her bio where she's begging for money, and her account screams paid Twitter troll, just like Jersey Dad Reliant and Jack Cockroachella. Nice. I didn't see any of that yesterday, so... And Rather even got onto it. What's going on at CNN? It's a serious question. There's a lot of speculation on directives and motives. What's really going on? And is it being noticed by the audience? And our paid Twitter troll, 2 of them right in a row. I finally decided to stop watching CNN. Firing Stelter and Harwood, coupled with what's increasingly feeling like a coordinated effort to push Republican talking points in both sides' fascism, has made it impossible for me to continue to watch, so I'm out. And Jersey Dad Reliant. We noticed! It sucks! I won't be back! No, as soon as they start saying bad stuff about the Orange Man, you'll all be back. Every one of you. Alright, some nonpartisan news from Fox 10 Phoenix. Who is Eliza Fletcher, Memphis teacher abducted during morning jog? From Michael Ruiz and Stephanie Pagones. Eliza Fletcher, a 34-year-old Memphis mother of 2 who went by Liza, was snatched during an early morning jog on Friday. Investigators say that as the junior kindergarten teacher ran down a stretch of Central Avenue near the University of Memphis, she was abducted and forced into a mid-sized dark-colored SUV at around 4:30 a.m. Memphis police tell Fox News Digital they received 2 calls around 7:45 a.m. one from Fletcher's husband, Richard Fletcher III, and one of the university. They found some of her belongings to the scene and were told that a male approached Fletcher and forced her into a dark SUV after a struggle. The Tennessee Bureau of Investigation later identified the vehicle as a GMC Terrain. She regularly jogged in the area. Authorities said Fletcher is an avid runner who is qualified for the Boston Marathon. A Memphis Magazine wedding announcement reveals Fletcher married her husband Richard on March 8, 2014 at the Dixon Gallery in Garden Park Avenue. She's described as outdoorsy, athletic, and warm. He has marked their anniversary on Instagram each year since, including with a series of selfies this year. 8 years in the making with this smoking hot babe, he wrote. Wouldn't want it any other way, even if the stomach bug is running through our family. Fletcher's parents declined to comment, and no one picked up the phone at the home that she shares with her husband and 2 children. Images posted online showed a significant police presence there Friday evening. In a March 2021 Instagram post, her husband, Richard Fletcher, marked their 7-year wedding anniversary with an image of them smiling over an outdoor brunch table. So, that's who she is, but it appears that we may have an arrest in this. From CNN, a suspect has been charged in the abduction of Eliza Fletcher, but the Memphis teacher remains missing, police say. From Tina Burnside, a man has been charged in connection with the disappearance of a Memphis teacher investigators believe was abducted while she was out for a jog on Friday morning, police said. Cleotha Abston, 38, was charged with especially aggravated kidnapping and tampering with evidence, according to a tweet from the Memphis Police Department posted earlier on Sunday. Fletcher, 34, was jogging around 4 a.m. Friday when a black GMC Terrain SUV passed her, according to surveillance footage obtained of the incident. A man was then seen getting out of the vehicle and ran aggressively towards Fletcher, then forced her into the passenger side of the SUV. Once both individuals were inside the SUV, the vehicle remained in a parking lot for approximately 4 minutes before driving away, according to footage cited in an affidavit obtained by CNN. Abston was arrested Saturday after police found a vehicle that they'd been looking for in the case. U.S. Marshals located the Terrain in a parking lot near Abston's residence, according to the identification seen in according to the affidavit. The vehicle had the same distinguishable vehicle damage and partial license plate identification seen in the surveillance footage from Fletcher's abduction. Abston was located nearby by U.S. Marshals and attempted to flee but was taken into custody, the affidavit said. It is unclear whether Abston has an attorney. Well, there's always the public defender, I guess. DNA recovered from a pair of sandals found near where the authorities believe Fletcher was abducted helped investigators in Memphis identify and arrest Abston in connection with Fletcher's disappearance, according to the affidavit. Investigators discovered surveillance footage captured from local theater the day before Fletcher's disappearance, which showed Abston wearing what authorities believe are the same pair of Champion slide sandals found at the crime scene, according to the affidavit. Additional surveillance footage matched with statements from Abston's employer confirmed the vehicle believed to be involved in Fletcher's kidnapping belongs to a woman associated with Abston's home address. Cell phone and records also place Abston at the site during the time of Fletcher's abduction on Friday morning, the affidavit said. Fletcher's damaged phone was found near the scene where she believes to have been abducted, Crime Stoppers Executive Director Buddy Chapman said, according to a news release obtained by CNN affiliate WHBQ. So, it does appear that at this point we still don't have any indication on where Fletcher is, or if she is still alive. Does not appear that questioning Abston has brought any information forward. And by the way, if you are in the area and you have seen this woman, Fletcher is white, 5'6", with brown hair and green eyes. Police said she weighs about 137 pounds. The family of the mother of two is offering a $50,000 reward through Crime Stoppers for information leading to an arrest in the case, WHBQ reported. Well, it does appear that there's been an arrest in the case, but I would still like to see, if at all humanly possible, the mother come home. Let's talk about Dr. Oz. Liberal media largely defends Fetterman skipping Oz debate over stroke remarks, but some are calling him out. From Nicholas Lanham. Many mainstream outlets are providing sympathetic framing to Democrat Pennsylvania Senate candidate John Fetterman's decision not to debate his Republican opponent, Dr. Mehmet Oz, as Fetterman recovers from a stroke. That appears to be in part because of the sharp attacks from Oz's campaign and Republican allies that have included sarcastic pledges to help Fetterman through any debates, and one person's acerbic remark that Fetterman could have avoided his stroke by eating more vegetables. Well, that's probably not true. That's probably a stupid thing to say to somebody. On-air conversations from CNN and MSDNC saw media figures widely condemning the Oz campaign's comments about Fetterman's health and hypothesizing that it may push people away from Republican candidate with an already unenthusiastic voter base. However, several commentators and guests also expressed concern at Fetterman's ability to govern. Fetterman, who suffered a stroke in May and spent time away from his campaign trail, has said that he does plan to debate Oz at some point. When speaking with Fox News Digital, Legal Insurrection founder and media critic William A. Jacobson said media coverage would be different if a Republican skipped debates over health problems. It's often helpful to ask how the media would treat a situation if the party affiliations were reversed. Well, could you imagine if the shoe was on the other foot? Is there any doubt that if a Republican candidate had a serious potential mental impairment and stayed off the campaign trail and refused to debate, because that media would be all over the issue? Of course it would be front and center, and public interest would take priority over sympathy, he said. Well, yeah, I mean, look at the potential mental impairment of the current president, and the fact that nobody in the media has talked about it since he got onto the campaign trail. But what I do want to point out with this, the first thing I want to point out with this is, for those of you who are actually Ozites, and I don't think there's very many of you, because for some reason, somehow Dr. Oz got the vote in Pennsylvania. I have no idea how. He was not the most qualified candidate for this, or the position, or the beliefs of many of the people who would be voting. But I think a lot of it was the name recognition that went with that. But Dr. Oz should not have been the senatorial candidate. Now, as far as where we are with that, Fetterman has a very, very wild agenda, and I can't see him being in the Senate. But furthermore, when I look at Fetterman, when I look at the decorum and the way that senatorial races go, this guy just had a stroke. And over the next 6 years, which is going to be his term, he's going to be faced with immense stresses. I mean, he'll have access to the best medical care in the country, medical care that you and I can't even imagine right now, but he's going to be faced with immense stresses. And some of these stresses, especially if he has more medical issue, are going to take him away from his office, where he may be called in to cast a tie-breaking vote, or he may be on one end of a filibuster, or he may be needed to go back and block something that could otherwise pass on a simple majority. For somebody who has had that serious of a condition that may take that person away from office for weeks, months at a time, just like what we're seeing off the campaign trail right now, I don't think he's going to be a good fit. Now, as far as Pennsylvania election law goes, I don't know if they have a provision to have a replacement come in Fetterman's place. But if I was a Pennsylvania Democrat, I would start looking into that. Because I don't want to see somebody come in by default. That's what you guys probably all know this are now. I hate unopposed races more than anything else. I write myself in for a lot of unopposed races just so that there's some sort of opposition coming for that. I did that for sheriff this year. I wrote myself in. Because the current sheriff's candidates on the left are running completely unopposed. And it always sickens me when I go down the ballot and I look down like, oh, county commissioner, unopposed. Oh, treasurer, unopposed. Oh, AG, unopposed. Oh, county prosecutor unopposed. I don't want Oz to win by default. I want him to have to work for it. I don't want him to win because Fetterman had a stroke. Because I want the good ideas to rise to the top and the bad ones to sink to the bottom. But we'll see what happens with that. From the Daily Wire, Winsome Sears explains why Democrats feel hatred for black conservatives. From Greg Wilson. Winsome Sears, the black former Marine who Virginians elected lieutenant governor in a stunning Republican wave last year, blasted Democrats for taking minorities for granted in a powerful recent interview. The 58-year-old Jamaican immigrant who, along with Governor Glenn Youngkin and Attorney General Jason Myers, flipped the Old Dominion from blue to red, told the New York Post columnist Cal Thompson why Democrats have contempt for black conservatives like her. In order for Democrats to continue to win, they need to get 80 to 90% of the black vote, Sears explained. That's why they're so full of hatred when conservatives like me or libertarians don't think the way that they do. We don't really care. Sears told Thomas blacks must break the grip Democrats have on them. These slaves did not die in the fields to be beholden to the Democrat Party, she said. They wanted their freedom, their families to be reunited, and their children to get a good education. The devout Christian and ardent pro-lifer said that it's mostly Democrats who are fighting to keep abortion legal, which she takes as a disproportionate toll on people of color. And they call me a white supremacist for saying we want more black babies, she mused. Democrats have to make up their minds. Sears told Thomas former President Trump did well with black voters because his policies created jobs and increased black entrepreneurship. She also praised the 45th president for increasing funding to historically black colleges and universities. But Sears, whose running mate Youngkin had sparked some presidential talk, stopped short of saying that she would endorse a 2024 run by Trump. I'm going to hold my fire, she said. I want to see what he says, what he does, and who else is out there. And that's just it, too. And really, honestly, I think there's another side to what's happening outside of what Sears has said here. When we look into some of the Democrat philosophy and some of the possible quid pro quo that's out there, I get this a lot when I see discussions over on Twitter coming from people who are appalled by the fact that a woman could vote for Trump. How can you vote for Trump as a woman? How could you vote for a Republican as a gay person? How could you vote Republican as a black person? I hear a lot of that, actually. I really do, because the insistence is that the Democrat Party is doing so much to further the cause of women, to further the cause of black people, and how can they be not grateful, and how can they not vote as a monolith when we're doing everything for their entire community? And it really does come down to the point of they're all exactly the same. It's really a racist and sexist thing. But that's always the question, is how can they? How can they not vote for us when we just sit and do all this for them? We take care of them from cradle to grave. All right, from Reuters. We got a lot from Reuters today. Plane safely lands after pilot threatened to crash into Mississippi Walmart. Arvel, what's going on down there by you? The pilot of a small plane who threatened to crash at a Walmart in Mississippi landed without any injuries, local officials said on Saturday. Earlier, the police department in Tupelo said they'd been talking directly to the pilot and had evacuated the Walmart and a gas station. Tupelo Police Chief John Quacca said the suspect, Corey Wayne Patterson, had been responsible for fueling aircraft. While Patterson appeared to have had some flight instructions, he was not a licensed pilot, Quacca said at a news conference. Patterson was in custody and was being charged with grand larceny and making terrorist threats, Quacca said, adding that he expected federal charges as well. Yeah, most likely. You don't defy the FAA and expect to walk away from it. we're just going to toss this over here because that's probably going to be on tomorrow's stack. From the Daily Wire, man's eerie message before allegedly stealing plane, threatening to crash into Walmart. Report. The pilot who threatened to crash a plane into Mississippi Walmart allegedly posted an eerie message on social media before allegedly stealing the plane. The pilot, identified by officials as Corey Wayne Patterson, had threatened to crash a Beechcraft King Air C-90 twin-engine craft into Walmart in Tupelo, a town of about 3,800 in northeastern Mississippi. He ended up landing the plane about 50 miles north of Tupelo, where the Benton County Sheriff's Department took him into custody. Sorry, everyone. I'm sorry, this is not funny, but that is funny. You steal an airplane. You fly it around, and you make threats over the radio to crash it into a Walmart. And the first thing that you do once you get on the ground is, sorry. Patterson allegedly wrote to his family on Facebook, "Never actually wanted to hurt anyone. I love my parents and sister, and this isn't your fault. Goodbye." Patterson, who is a student pilot, will be facing charges for grand larceny and making terrorist threats, according to local law enforcement officials. Patterson could also face federal charges as well. Per the Associated Press, the small plane threatening to crash in Tupelo and has landed as no one has been hurt. The person inside the plane is in custody. Throughout the morning, law enforcement has been scrambling to resolve the situation as the plane kept circling the area. Yeah, what's his, what was it that he said, though? I don't know. Let's watch the video, and then it doesn't, because I mean the headline says the eerie message before allegedly stealing the plane. Is it maybe in here because it's not in the text? Let's listen. That's all the more volume we get out of this. But it does, especially with the tag on the bottom, it does look like he was possibly threatening suicide. Last paragraph here. He's a good human being too. He made a huge mistake today, and it saddens me that the rest of the world won't ever get to know him the way that I do. Chelsea Fleming Jolly wrote, he could have ended it all today, freeing himself from all the hurtful and ugly things that are going to be said about him, but instead he chose life and a chance at forgiveness. You too have a decision to make. You can either pray for him, or you can be the reason that people feel like they have no hope. Apparently we're not going to get to see the disturbing message. I don't know. Some news from our neighbors to the north as we run up on the edge of the clock here. Manhunt underway for 2 suspects in connection with the mass stabbings that left at least 10 dead in Saskatchewan. From Amir Vera, Jamia Lynch, and Artemis Moshtagian. Canadian authorities are searching for 2 men in connection with a mass stabbing on Sunday that left at least 10 dead and 15 injured across multiple crime scenes in Saskatchewan in central Canada. Authorities have identified 2 suspects as Damian Sanderson and Miles Sanderson and are advising the public to take appropriate precautions. The pair were believed to be armed, dangerous, and traveling in a black Nissan Rogue with Saskatchewan license plate 119 MPI. The RCMP in Saskatchewan, Alberta, and Manitoba are all jointly investigating the stabbings. We're dedicating a maximum number of resources to this investigation, said Assistant Commissioner Rhonda Blackmore with the RCMP Saskatchewan in a statement. Let me be clear, we're still looking for 2 suspects. Hold on. Let me be clear, We're still looking for 2 suspects. We're asking the residents across Saskatchewan and our neighboring provinces to be vigilant. At this stage in our investigation, we believe that some of the victims have been targeted by the suspects and others have been attacked randomly. Blackmore wrote. Authorities described Damien Sanderson as a 31-year-old man who's 5'7" and 155 and has black hair and brown eyes. Miles Sanderson is described as 30, who is 6'1" and 240 with brown hair and brown eyes. Blackmore said the first stabbing report came in at 5:40 a.m. local time, and the James Smith Cree Nation, and within minutes they received multiple calls reporting additional stabbings. Over the next 6 hours, Saskatchewan RCMP sent out multiple alerts and updates on the stabbings, including issuing a dangerous person alert for Saskatchewan, Manitoba, and Alberta. Authorities said there are 13 crime scenes where victims were found across Saskatchewan in the communities of the James Smith Cree Nation and Weldon. Several victims were injured, at least 15 of whom were taken to various hospitals, Blackmore said, adding that there were additional injured victims who took themselves to the hospital. So, 25 people killed or injured in a stabbing, but hey, don't worry, there were no guns involved. And this is the important part to think about when we look at something like this. Evil is always there. The evil in the heart of a person who would run out and go start stabbing is the same evil of somebody who would pick up an AR platform rifle and start shooting into a crowd. And by the way, these guys have a pretty significant body count compared to most mass shootings. It almost seems like they have a better body count than a lot of the mass shootings that we hear about. I think the only one that I can think of in recent history was Uvalde was better. What was Parkland? Let's see. So this one was 25 between killed and injured. Parkland was 34. So yes, Parkland did have a higher body count. Parkland and Uvalde, but other than that, what else had a bigger body count? Well, Vegas, but we don't talk about that one. But a lot of the other ones we hear, mass shooting, and it's like 4 or 5 total injured. And these guys, without a gas discharge, got to 25 with 10 of them killed. Stay safe up there, Canadians. Let's talk about Truth Social. Grab this one. Trump's Truth Social barred from Google Play Store over content moderation concerns. From Jack Stebbins. Truth Social, the would-be Twitter competitor created by Trump Media and Technology Group, remains unavailable on the Google Play Store. Google said the app lacks effective systems for moderating user-generated content, which violates the store's terms of service. On August 19th, we notified Truth Social of several violations of standard policies in their current app submission and reiterated that having effective systems for moderating user-generated content is a condition of our terms of service for any app to go live on the Google Play. The tech company, which is owned by Alphabet, told CNBC in a statement on Tuesday, "Dude, I have seen some of the messages that go back and forth on various first-person shooter games, some of which are available. on the Google Play Store, like PUBG, and you really don't have a leg to stand on with this. Let's see. The restriction means that Android users make up, let's see. Yeah. The restriction means that Android users, who make up 44% of the smartphone users in the US, can't download the app. Google will not let the app go live until the content issues are addressed. Truth Social acknowledged Google's concerns and said that it would work on addressing these issues, according to Axios. Trump Media and Technology Group CEO Devin Nunes told a different story. The former lawmaker, who was one of former President Trump's staunchest allies in Congress, said the decision is up to Google and not dependent on Truth Social's policies. When are we going to be available on Android? Well, look, that's up to the Google Play Store. We're waiting on them to approve us. I don't know what's taking so long, Nunes said on the Just the News, Not Noise podcast. It sure would be nice if they would approve us. Google said that Nunes' statements misrepresent the ongoing dialogue between Trump Media and the Play Store. Google reiterated that Truth Social's violations and the steps to redress them have been clearly communicated with the company. Trump Media pushed back, saying Truth Social was creating a vibrant, family-friendly environment. TMTG has no desire to litigate its business in matters in the public sphere, but for the record, has promptly responded to all inquiries from Google. The company said in a press release Tuesday, "It is our belief that all Americans should have access to Truth Social, no matter what devices they use. We look forward to Google approving Truth Social at the earliest convenience." I want to know why they don't have a web page and why it only has to be mobile. That's the one that really gets me. I might actually consider Truth Social if they put it out on the web, but I have no desire to have an Apple device. And I mean, I barely use the Twitter app on my phone. I use it sometimes, like if I'm first getting up and looking for some extra news stories to go pad out Contemporary or something. But yeah, I don't use the mobile apps for any of this. But I'm betting if you had your own web page that you controlled, that you wouldn't have to sit back and wait around for Google Play to approve you. People could just go to the web page, either on their phone's browser or on the computer. In fact, the fact that you kept this as a mobile app only service, I think that was kind of a stupid idea, to be completely honest. All right. We've got just a few more here, then we'll be out of here for the day. From the Blaze, Arizona did the job the federal government failed to do. Governor Ducey's border wall has been completed. We've been waiting on this one for a while because this one's all the way back from August 25th. Over 1.9 million illegal aliens have stolen across the U.S. southern border in 2022. More than ever before in recorded history, Yuma is a particularly high traffic sector, which has seen a 250% increase in migrant encounters this year, with over 259,895 illegal aliens encountered between October 2021 and July 2022. Citing the worst border crisis in over 20 years, Republican Governor Doug Ducey signed a bill into law on June 30th that would finance the construction of a wall along his state's border with Mexico. Accordingly, $335 million in state funds were directed to construct and maintain a border fence, purchase or install border security technologies, and pay associated admin costs. An additional $209 million was allocated to fund border-related enforcement. Although Biden halted construction of the southern border wall when he took office and ended former President Trump's Remain in Mexico policy, his admin announced in July it would complete the Trump-funded U.S.-Mexico border wall, specifically in the Yuma sector. According to the Department of Homeland Security, part of the admin's reasoning for completing the project near Yuma was to protect illegal aliens from getting hurt near the Morelos Dam. Ducey found the Biden admin's initiative dubious and issued a statement on August 12th asserting Arizona has had enough. "We can't wait any longer. The Biden admin's lack of urgency on border security is a dereliction of duty." Ducey indicated that he would fortify gaps in the state's border using 60 double-stacked 8,800-pound shipping containers, all reinforced with concertina wire on the top. Which is probably a good thing, because I'm telling you again, right off the bat, you probably shouldn't be depending on the federal government for a lot of stuff. They tend to fail a lot. Alright, what else do we have? Governor Abbott is in the news again. Governor Abbott increases the reward for information on criminal stash houses. I feel like I read this one already. I have read this one before. Skip! Got an op-ed from The Hill. Don't just cancel student debt. The cycle only ends with free college. Because of course it does. Because once the college is free and has a no-bid government contract where they can ask for however much money they want, again, that comes up out of your pocket. From Chris Geary, opinion contributor. The views expressed by contributors are their own and not the view of The Hill. The views expressed by the contributors are also the views of the contributor, and not necessarily the views of Contemporary or Turns of Pages Productions. Lost in the debate regarding President Biden's anticipated announcement that he plans to cancel student debt is a more complicated and arguably more important reality. Democrats have abandoned all efforts to make college tuition free at the federal level. This means that even if Biden cancels all outstanding student debt, the federal government has not enacted plans to prevent students from accumulating new debt moving forward. While borrowers may momentarily rejoice at the debt forgiveness by tabling plans to make college tuition free, Democrats threaten to undercut their own attempts to expand college access and affordability. Debt cancellation, while potentially meaningful to millions of Americans, will not make higher education affordable. Without further action, the Biden admin, congressional Democrats, and yes, also Republicans, should do more to make college affordable so that millions of Americans can access life-enhancing benefits of a college education. Sure, let's make it free. Let's also, by the way, let's make it required. As long as we're going that direction. I mean, if it's free, then we move everybody up. And now the age of emancipation is 22 because, hey, you've got to go up to 16th grade, don't you? The drinking age is now 22. The cigarette age is now 22. The age of consent is now 22. Well, no, our friends over on the left might not like that very much. The age to vote is now 22. Because that's when you'll be reasonably getting out of school. I mean, again, if they're just going to keep putting people in there, what's to stop them from going and requiring this extra 4 years of indoctrination? Despite widely varying opinions regarding the appropriate role of higher education in American life, an indisputable fact remains. College degrees pay off. Recent research suggests the economic returns to college degrees are at an all-time high. On average, recent college graduates earn $52,000 per year, while young workers with high school diplomas but no higher education credentials earn only $30,000 a year. The difference, known as the college wage premium, has increased since the start of the Pinko-Pox pandemic. College completion is also associated with lower unemployment rates, so when talking about a worthwhile investment for an individual in a society, college proves its value as an effective path to higher paying jobs and economic well-being. Right, but once you cheapen that, it becomes nothing more than a high school diploma. That's the problem with it. Once you make it free, and then you turn around and make it required, which that'll be the next step, because you know, the college professors will join in the teachers union, and then they'll have to have the government come in and make sure that they have a captive customer base forever. Once you get to that point, it becomes just another high school diploma. And then the master's degree becomes your college degree, your bachelor's degree, that you need to have to go back off and do things. And then the next question is, oh, where'd you go get your master's? It's a vicious cycle. Some January 6th news. Former NYPD officer sentenced to 10 years in prison for assaulting a police officer on January 6th. From Holmes Librand. Former New York police officer Thomas Webster, who unsuccessfully tried to convince Washington, D.C. jury that he was merely acting in self-defense against a police officer whom he assaulted on January 6th, was sentenced to 10 years. It's the longest sentence of any other January 6th defendant so far. Oh yeah, they want to make him an example, or, as I suggested at the top of the show, they're looking to get other people out there to think to themselves, we've had a grave injustice, we have to defend these people. Let's do a terrorism to make sure these people know we mean business. In the videos played during his trial, the 56-year-old former Marine can be seen swinging a metal flagpole at police officer Noah Rathbun before crossing police barriers at the U.S. Capitol and tackling Rathbun, choking him with the officer's chain strap. In May, Webster was found guilty of all 6 charges he faced, 5 of which were felonies. It is not until you arrived, Mr. Webster, that all hell broke loose, Judge Amit Mehta said of the police line, which Webster broke. I still remain shocked every time I see it, Mehta said of the video. Nobody pushed you forward, you ran, the judge added, noting several times how the video completely contradicted Webster's own testimony of the assault. You constructed an alternative truth. Mehta said of Webster's testimony on the stand in May, adding that his claims of self-defense were just not credible and calling the testimony utterly fanciful. So, and with that being said, I've said from the beginning, the people who were violent, who were not provoked by anybody else, which it appears from the video that this person was, should face the assault charges that go with them. Now, 10 years for simple assault, even assault of a cop, it seems a little bit excessive. Usually that's a year, but I feel like there were some extenuating circumstances that the judge wanted to throw back on top just to make sure that there was an example made of this person. From KTLA 75. Apparently he's taken the last train to Clarksville. Last surviving member of the Monkees is suing the FBI. From Judy Kurtz. The Monkey singer Mickey Dolenz is suing the FBI in an effort to obtain any records the agency has on the hit band and its members. A lawsuit filed by Dolenz, the last surviving member of the band, noted the performer had exhausted all necessary required administrative remedies after submitting a Freedom of Information Act request to receive the files from the FBI. Portions of an FBI file on the I'm a Believer singers were released in 2011 and include references to anti-Vietnam War rhetoric and subliminal messages depicted on a screen at a 1967 Monkees concert that an informant claimed featured left-wing innovations of a political nature. Interesting. The FBI was known to keep tabs on several famous faces during the 60s and 70s, under then-director J. Edgar Hoover, including anti-war musicians such as John Lennon and John Denver, among others. Yeah, the establishment sure does love going to war. Dolenz's attorney, Mark Zaid, told Rolling Stone that the 77-year-old entertainer and the last surviving member of the band originally submitted a FOIA request in June to obtain the full file from the FBI. The lawsuit was brought after the FBI failed to follow through with what the FOIA request within 20 working days is, as is legally required, Zaid told the music publication. Zaid wrote on Twitter on Tuesday that he's been a Monkees fan since the early 70s, calling it a pleasure to be representing Dolenz. Why was the FBI monitoring the band back in the late 60s? We will find out, Zaid said. I'd be curious to find that out, actually. And he is still outperforming too, by the way. In more entertainment news, we're almost done here. 2 more. Instagram removes Pornhub's account from its platform. From the New York Daily News, from Muri Asunkao. Instagram has removed Pornhub's account from its platform. Prior to its removal, the Canadian-owned pornographic video streaming website had more than 13 million followers on Instagram and shared more than 6,200 posts. It's unclear exactly why the Meta-owned social media giant took down the popular adult entertainment site, but on Friday afternoon, the founder and CEO of the nonprofit Justice Defense Fund, Layla Mickelwaite, tweeted that the account was just taken down. Instagram has made the right decision by cutting ties with Pornhub and now joins Visa, MasterCard, Discover, PayPal, Grant Thornton, Heinz, Unilever, Roku, and many other companies in rejecting to do business with Pornhub, a site infamous for monetizing the sex trafficking and criminal sexual abuse of countless victims, including children. Mickelwaite told the Daily News in an email on Saturday. It is worth remembering that it's illegal in the U.S., according to Trafficking Victims Protection Act, to knowingly benefit from a sex trafficking venture, she added, urging other companies to do the same. Now it's finally time for Google Search, Amazon Web Services, Google Cloud, Microsoft Azure, and Reflected Networks to follow suit. Yo, what is it that Pornhub did to screw with the establishment, other than possibly taking down their ability to keep people addicted on highly produced stuff that people are making millions off of? But even still, with that being said, I mean, they're still ruining a generation of young men, getting them addicted on something that's easily accessible. This should be right up their alley, is having something like this out there for free that people can access on a simple Google search. This should be like people like Google Search, Amazon Web Services, Visa, MasterCard, especially with the amounts of money that people would thumb through there. They should be all about this. They should be excited for this beyond any sort of reason. I don't understand why they're mad, to be completely honest. But they're gone on Instagram. It's probably better for society that they're gone, but I mean, again, I don't understand why they would be mad. This seems to be right along with their agenda. Alright, and the last one, in entertainment news again. No apologies. Judge tosses Nevermind baby child porn case against Nirvana. Yeah, I don't think anybody thought that this was going to go anywhere, because this kid has been capitalizing off this his entire life. From Jesse O'Neill. Spencer Eldon will not have his revenge on Nirvana. The lawsuit from the now adult infant, who graced the cover of the band's 1991 landmark album, Nevermind, was tossed out Friday, as a federal judge said that Nevermind claims the grunge rockers engaged in child porn. Eldon, 31, had argued that he had shot the shot of him in the nude swimming towards a dollar bill on a fishhook amounted to child porn. I mean, technically. I guess if it was me and it was 1991, I would probably shoot that out. U.S. District Judge Fernando Olguin of Los Angeles said Eldon had waited far too long to take legal action against the legendary grunge rockers in a suit that named several record labels, drummer Dave Grohl, bassist Chris Novoselic, Kurt Cobain's estate, and photographer Kurt Weddle. Eldon had filed 3 versions of the suit, and Olguin's dismissal prevented him from filing a 4th. Eldon alleged last year that the photo caused him lifelong damage, though he has the album title tattooed across his chest, and recreated the famous picture in 2016 to pay homage to the seminal record on its 25th anniversary. In an 2003 interview with Rolling Stone, the 12-year-old Eldon predicted that he would probably get some money from his contribution to the album, which went triple diamond and revamped the face of popular rock music on the strength of the smash hit Smells Like Teen Spirit. Nirvana, a previously underground group on an independent label, paid Eldon's family $200 to dunk the 4-month-old in a pool at Pasadena Aquatic Center in California before their major label debut made a splash. Eldon got the gig because his father was friends with a photographer. Dude, this kid has been capitalizing on this for his entire life, and now he wants to go back and try to capitalize it more on a lawsuit. And again, this is the third time he's done it, and he can't do it a fourth time. This kid is a moron who had a gravy train handed to him. And everybody knows who he is, too. I remember when he turned 21, and the pictures were starting to get tossed around of him being 21. I remember that. I was discussing that with some of my Gen X coworkers at the time when I saw the first post about that. When he turned 21 10 years ago. Like, oh, this is the baby from the Nirvana album. You feel old yet? That kind of thing. It's not like he's unknown, and he can go and get gigs. He can get any woman he probably wants just by saying, yes, I made Nirvana famous. Especially in Seattle. But to go in this direction, like, what harm has this caused you? I don't know. But that chapter is drawn to a close. And with that, the program draws to a close. But before we do, as we always do, before we head out of here on a Monday, we check out, on more entertainment news, through Memory Beta, one of the rules of acquisition. We've been going down through the list. We've actually made a powerful way through this. We are on the 98th, although this is an instance, another one of the rules of acquisition that has 2 on them. So we did the first from the Alpha Canon, the 98th rule of acquisition, every man has his price, from the In the Pale Moonlight DS9 episode. Now we look on to a novelization, not a novelization, but an actual novel. The 98th rule of acquisition from the DS9 novel IQ says, if you can't take it with you, don't go. It's an interesting thought, especially as we look at immortality. And I've not read this particular book, so I don't know what the references that they're going with. But when we look at the religion of the Ferengi, of profit acquisition, especially against other species in the galaxy, there are often times where you're going to be asked to leave things behind. Some of your profits, some of your ventures, especially the successful ones, to go back and seek out a different venture. But it's realistic to look at with this when you say it. If you can't take it with you, don't go. At one point here, hopefully this spring, fingers crossed, and by the way, the links are in the description if you guys want to help out, I will be picking up a little piece of property. And I will be taking this business with me, and hopefully I'll be taking my other job with me as well. But yeah, I'll be taking this with me. I'll be running out, and I will be going off. But I don't want to go if I've got to sit back and shut everything down. It was the same thing with when I went to Atlanta these last couple times. Knowing full well that I had to take the laptop with me and keep everything going throughout the entire time I was there, and we didn't miss a day of Contemporary the whole time, which I thought was mildly impressive, I'm not going to lie. When I went to Florida, I got a couple people in and going with that. And, well, just one actually when I went to Florida, because Jessica Green did it both days and then I did it the rest of the week. But I took it with me, and even though I had to go stream from my phone, I took it with me. There is some argument on the metaphysical and philosophical side of that, especially surrounding death. Because what's the big adage about death? You can't take it with you. Can't take it with you when you go. And you really can't avoid death. It happens to all of us. But philosophically, it's interesting, and it goes in 2 different directions. And I'd be curious to see what some of the chat has to say about what the actual real world implications are of this. If you can't take it with you, don't go. So that is what we see for this, the rules of acquisition. And we're done, and let's head out of here for the day. We get a lot done. Surprise. Well, we had a somewhat of a decent audience today, too. Being Labor Day and everything, and a lot of people probably hung over and still camping, which I should be as well, but, you know, it's more important for me to go grab a piece of property right now than anything else, so I have no desire to go spend money on anything unless it's keeping me alive at this point. Because I can't rent anymore, you guys. I can't. Hit the donate links if you like what you see, if you like where you're at here, and let's head out of here for the day. Where's my outro? I know you're over here. There it is. So, thanks everybody who came by and chatted in the live chat, everybody who came by and hung out with us, and even KTZed waking up in time on a Labor Day to come back and say hi. It's 11:30 in Eastern time. Somebody had a good night last night. But we'll be back here tomorrow for more news, more commentary. Because of the holiday weekend and people traveling, I didn't do game stream on Saturday. I'm not going to do one today either. Because of everybody out traveling, I might actually run off and do a hike. I know I spent yesterday in a full-on sweat cleaning up my place here because it needed to be done. So come back here and join me tomorrow for more news, more headlines, and more contemporary. Looking forward to seeing you guys here and looking forward to seeing what we have to say and what happens over the next 24 hours on what should be a slow news day. Should be. Don't know if it's going to be, but should be a slow news day. Definitely looking forward to that. Looking forward to seeing all of you here tomorrow and hopefully some new people as well. And until then, I'm Jay Edgar, and this is Contemporary. Take care.